All right. So, to get started, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Cait from Writer Uninterrupted, obviously, because this is where we are having this thing. And of course, this is I think I'm pointing in the right direction, my esteemed colleague, Zack Dolge do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm just the friendly neighborhood delinquent of AuthorTube. You can find me over at Zack the Dolge on YouTube. And, I give writing advice and review books, and every now and then I'm even entertaining.
And our lovely guest, would you like to introduce yourself for my viewers?
I'm Jennifer, or Jen, shorter. I'm, I guess, an author now. I've published my first book this year, so...
Yay! Yeah. So, you are the author of The Cardinal War. Would you like to give us a little insight into what that's about?
Sure. Yeah, so the Cardinal War takes place in the Empire of Frythiel, and in the city of Moordale specifically. And the Emperor passes away with no known heirs, and the 4 surrounding manors, so the 4 cardinal points, are fighting over who gets to be on the throne next, which are their children. And the story is told from the perspective of one of the messengers of the Emperor, the younger brother, Diethy, as well as a young thief, Aileen. And those are kind of the 2 main characters and their adventure through and how they interact with the world now and how they interact with each other after they meet. Yeah.
Awesome. So, how long have you been working on this story?
I actually started this story, I was doing the math the other day, and I think I started it when I was the same age as Aileen, so back in university in like 2014, probably.
Oh, wow.
But then I stopped it for a while because I took a class actually in how to self-publish. Didn't proceed with that because it just seemed hard. And I don't think I was ready for it at the time. And then this year with COVID, I was just kind of like, the only reason I'm not doing it is because I'm scared and I shouldn't be because I like the work. So I just kind of went for it.
Yeah. Why be afraid of shit that can't kill you?
Yeah. And it's like, for books, people are going to like books. People are not going to like books. And I wanted to share my story. And so far, people seem to like it. So that's good.
That is very good. So you've been living with this story for a long time. Was there any kind of inspiration that you got from anywhere else that sort of birthed this concept? Or do you feel like it was completely original?
I think it was mostly original. I will say for the wings especially, I had just finished a book where the characters had wings. It's not Dark the Story is the one I read with that one. But as soon as I read about them having wings, I was like, I want to write a story with my characters having wings. But other than that, I don't know if I could pinpoint, other than maybe like characteristics of my friends and such in the characters. But other than that, I just kind of created a world and used a lot of Celtic names for the characters' names. Yes. For some reason, I have a Celtic name book on my bookshelf, so I just use that for writing now.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. I don't know where I got it from, but
good thing to have lying around.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And we have, so far, one comment. Hello, Katie.
Oh, is that our friend Katie over there in the comments?
Katie over here in the comments.
Oh,
yes. So,
oh. That's our friend Katie. Oh, God. Stop it. There we go. Oh, sorry. That was
me. Oh my. So, is there any particular reason why you decided to go with independent publishing as opposed to pitching yourself to a traditional publisher?
I think I found more information, to be honest, on how to do it myself. And the biggest thing seemed to be just money for that one, whereas publishing with someone, I had to find the information, pitch my idea, possibly get rejected, and it would just be a longer process, potentially. Whereas I was ready to do my story now, and I just wanted to get it out there. So I figured this was the more straightforward way that I could share my story.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And because I find that with a lot of like traditional publishing, they're very constrictive about who they let in and who they don't, and
It's definitely a club.
Yeah, for sure. And so, do you feel like having chosen to independently publish that you feel a lot more freedom to be able to tell your own stories the way that you want to?
I think so, yeah, and also be able to write like future stories on kind of more my timeline. Whereas I feel like if I was with a publisher, I might have to be like a book a year or whatever they decide. And I don't know if I'd want that pressure, because even I can go with the option of never publishing again if I really didn't want to at this stage.
Yeah, but why would you?
Yeah, I kind of do. I have more story ideas, so.
Yeah, I will tell you, it's an addiction, really. Like, it's an obsession. Like, you dip your toes in the water just a little bit, you get published, and then, you start making sales, and you're like, oh, hey, this could be a thing.
Yeah. I'm excited. On the 16th, I get my next sales report, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, you'll have to let us know how that goes.
Best.
Yeah, I get them every month. So the first month, it was only 9 days because I published on the 23rd of September, or 7 days, I guess. So that one was small, of course, but October went well. So we'll see. See how November went.
Yes, yeah, and I think it's a lot easier doing it with self-publishing as opposed to traditional publishing, because you get your sales reports every month as opposed to every 3 months, if you even get them.
Yeah. It's just nice to see where I am on the line, and if I need to maybe do some more promotion, and that'll be one of the things. I did a lot more promotion in November, so
yeah,
we'll see how that affected things, and then this month as well I'll have more, so.
Well, you can feel free to come and hang out here or wherever else we hang out and get you more promotion.
Well, thank you. You guys are very lovely so far.
Aw.
Yes. You haven't seen my real side yet.
That's what I was about to say. I was like, oh.
We fooled her. The poor girl.
It worked. Oh man. So to talk a little bit about how you work, is there, and I know that there's not necessarily a magic bullet formula to how anybody does this, but is there anything in particular that you do that helps you to stay more productive as a writer?
Pretty much writing the sections of the story I want at the time. So I create a rough outline of the story, so say a couple sentences for each chapter. Pardon me. And then I'll usually write the ending first, or at least a part of the ending, a gist of the ending. And then I just kind of write whatever chapter is inspiring me that day, rather than writing in order. Because sometimes it's either an action heavy or a dialogue heavy, and I just don't want to that day. So I'll switch to the other type of chapter that I want to write. Or maybe it's a review day where I just go through non-completed chapters and flush them out a little bit more. So I like having the flexibility to have a bit of an outline, but otherwise just jump around and feel where it's happening today.
Because I think that's one of the things that helped me too, was figuring out a way to do it where I don't have to do it consecutively, because it keeps your brain more flexible, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So
yeah, exactly. Really, the only thing I had to watch was timelines sometimes, or time of day sometimes, because I did realize at one point I lost a full day and I wasn't sure how.
Oh,
It was like in my story, it was like daylight and then it was evening, and I was like, oh, but nothing happened. So
oh. I thought there for a minute that you had lost a day.
like I
Right.
wrote all day.
Yes, it didn't realize that that's what had happened.
No, just in my story.
Okay. Oh my. Huh. Yeah, because a lot of writers have an issue with that sometimes, um with different elements in their story, um where they will, well, for instance, in a book he read recently, the hatchet turned into an axe.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, is there anything that you do to keep all of your little details straight so that things like that don't happen very often?
I do have a document for world building.
Mm-hmm.
So at least in terms of, because I plan to write books across the empire, and I have a map in it. And in the first book, I talk about how long it takes to get to certain places. So I
Mm-hmm.
wrote that down. So I want to make sure I know how long it takes to get to places, because
Mm-hmm.
that came up in my second book, where the time I had to adjust to make it
Mm-hmm.
match my first one, so that it didn't suddenly take way longer or way shorter of a time, because it just wouldn't make sense if you read both of them, because people do pick up on those little details.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I have a full document now for world building and like climate and wing color of each area and all that sort of stuff. I keep adding to it.
So you're coming for Tolkien a little bit there.
I don't know about that, but
That's like one of her favorite little things to say. You're coming for Tolkien. It's like, oh yes, I'm nipping at the heels of this immeasurable giant. I'm gonna get him I'm gonna get him. I'm this close to breaking the skin, I'm right there.
Yeah, we don't know about that close, but we'll see in the future.
Well, I mean, that's kind of everybody's dream, though, especially when you write fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean,
He is the giant to contend with, that is for sure.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes, because there's him and there's also C.S. Lewis, and I know he's sci-fi, but there's also Ben Bova. Do you vary genres in your reading, or do you
In my
read
reading,
just lots of
yes.
fantasy?
Definitely primarily fantasy, but I also love historical fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why one of my books combines the two. It has dragons and historical fiction. So that's really cool. But yeah, I like both of those. I'll read just fiction too, and if someone just says read this book, then I'll read it. The only ones I really don't read are like straight romance. It's the only genre I kind of stay away from. I don't mind that there's romance in it, just not like a straight romance book.
Mm.
But otherwise, yeah, I pretty much mostly read fantasy, but I do expand every now and then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I've found that when it comes to just straight romance, people have kind of lost the art of how to do that well.
Mm. I've heard that from my friends recently, yeah, because they read a lot of that genre.
And mostly it's because it's very tropey, which some people say that there are, lots of tropes in fantasy and science fiction and things like that as well. What, if anything, did you do to avoid being very tropey and keeping things innovative in your story?
I think I honestly just focused on telling my story, and I came across more in the editing, I'd say, based on comments. That's when I kind of thought it came across more tropes, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should adjust this a little bit. Or learning now from the first story to the second story, a lot of my learning has happened there as well, because I've gotten a lot of good feedback, especially for my boyfriend. We sat for like 2 hours and talked about it, which was really nice, and gave me honest feedback, which was good. Not just I love or I hate, but like actually this could be expanded on, or that sort of thing. So I think I'll learn a lot more in the second book too.
I think it's invaluable to have a sounding board when you're developing your world. I've talked about this quite a bit about my own work. I sent my father chapter by chapter as I wrote my stuff, and we discussed so much of it. And it is unquantifiable how much he improved the world building in my debut novel because of all the things I got to sound off of him and everything that I found out. Oh, so even to someone who thinks like me, that doesn't make perfect sense. I obviously need to clarify that at least a little bit. So yeah. Having someone who will actually listen and think about what you're saying and really discuss your work with you is great.
Yeah, I have another friend that I also was, when I started writing my second one there, I was like, does this make sense for a concept? And she's like, yeah, but just maybe tweak this and this. And then I was like, okay, now I can start my world. And then again, I've asked her from her feedback on the first one too. So, but the first one was a lot of fun to write and get my experience out there.
And what if, are you okay?
I'm mad, but drink is empty.
Oh no. You're like, Can, how dare you deceive me this way?
How dare you run out of liquid?
I don't understand.
I need that liquid.
It's liquid. It's like, you know what would be really cool is if you could find some kind of device that would, I don't know, you would set it on there and then it would just refill the can and then close the bottom off again once it was full.
That'd be handy.
Like,
things like that exist. It's for like bottles and stuff that you buy. They have like homemade soda makers and stuff.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
They also have these things called coffee pots.
Yes. Well, no, I mean something like built into your desk where you, like, it would sense that it was empty so you could set it on the device and then it would just refill it from the bottom and then close the bottom off and it would be full. And you would just have like an endless.
Here we are living in 2021. Caitlyn's over here dreaming of 2050.
What can I say? I'm a creative person. I write stuff, and I think that there should be an invention like this. Now
here I have a question about your work, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you have dragons and you also have humanoids who have wings, correct?
No dragons in this story. I just love to read dragons.
Okay, got it. So because that would have been a very interesting, I think that would be a very interesting thing to have as a story where both the humanoids fly and the dragons fly. Because you usually, anytime you see dragons versus humans, for example, it's a ground versus aerial dynamic, but that would be an aerial versus aerial dynamic. Very much a Legion of Sparrows versus the Mighty Eagle kind of scenario. And that would be fun to write and read. I might take that. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey!
I haven't delved into the dragons yet. I have one story that started just that for fun, but I find dragons, there's rules about them, even though they're fictional. So you kind of got to match some of the rules, kind of like that Tolkien created, and just in general of like chromatic dragons versus, with all the different colors and which ones breathe fire, which ones breathe acid, and I feel like there's kind of rules that are good to follow, but you can also create your own. So I just haven't delved into that one really yet.
Yeah, the fun thing about dragons is definitely that there's a lot of lore to go off of, because there's Western and Eastern lore for dragons, and a lot of stories mix the two, to be quite frank, because you see a lot of Western-bodied dragons who have the minds of Eastern dragons. That's very, very popular in fiction. And so yeah, dragon books are, when they're well done, they're great. I loved the Aragon series, for example.
Yeah, I have a section on my bookshelf that's just all dragons. And I have a dragon tattoo, so.
Ah.
I got my first tattoo this year, and it was a dragon, so.
Nice.
Yeah. Like them a little bit.
Yeah, you're like, hey, I've published a book. I am now officially adventurous. I'm going to start getting tattoos, looking like a badass.
Yep. And I went skydiving for the first time, so.
Hey!
I did everything this year.
That's adventurous.
Yes. Oh, speaking of, you should totally join our little group on adventurouspublications.com. We have a way that, like, a whole community on there and talk to each other and make posts and stuff. So,
Perfect.
If you want to come hang out, yeah.
We are in the process of growing that. That's going to be the next happening thing, damn it.
Yes, exactly. Because and part of the reason why is we believe in celebrating originality and being able to tell your own stories without, constraints of metadata and right to market and all of that other stuff. Do you think that the reason why so much of fiction has become so homogenized and boring is because people feel there can only be successful to do things like right to market?
Yeah, self-publishing and stuff, I think, is becoming more prevalent, but a lot of people don't know about it or do feel like they have to be really, really good at something, like a master at something to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, I've had this conversation with my boyfriend because it's nice that you can get your ideas out there and just show off your creativity. Yeah, it may not be the next J.K. Rowling or Tolkien or whoever, but you can still put your ideas out there and it be special to you and share your experience. And I think more people should do, not just in writing, but in everything.
Yeah.
Be able to do that.
Yeah. Yes, be yourself, as everyone else is taken.
Yes, exactly. And that's one of in my story, kind of the Eileen, she kind of learns how to be herself and what she goes against what people are telling her to do or tries to figure out what people are wanting her to do and find her own place in the world. So it kind of ties into that too.
Now there's a beautiful little metaphor there with a coming of age story, and the characters also have the gift of flight. Is that a metaphor you deliberately had in place, or did it just work out that way?
Probably a bit of both. I mean, they do have a specific age that they do, for the most part, gain the ability to fly in the story. So it is kind of tied with coming of age a little bit. But I also just like that idea. So it was just, I wanted it to be in there regardless of anything else.
Right. Well, yeah, the flight is one of those things that it's so fun to play with for so many different reasons. From the practical aspect, having characters that can fly offers up a lot of room in the creative writing, just of the prose. You can have a lot of fun writing flying sequences and that kind of stuff. And then, of course, there's the complete other side where it's the symbolism that you can get into and the greater significance of what it means when someone can fly, both literally and figuratively speaking. Just the possibilities explode. It's great. My dad was obsessed with flight. He used to wax poetic with me at length about the glory of flight.
So do you think that, to kind of tether to the point that he made, do you think that sometimes metaphors and things like that happen in a story without you dictating them to happen, and they just evolve spontaneously sometimes?
I think so, yeah.
As
I will say, especially in my first story, I didn't necessarily know all the necessarily best ways to write, we'll say, or tricks and trades. I just kind of did it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of metaphors, especially in that book, probably were accidental. I definitely put forward, like, I had my goals and such, but I didn't necessarily have all the small mini goals that I do now writing, now that I've had more experience and skills with it and feedback.
Mm-hmm. So
happy accidents.
Happy accidents, yes. Serendipity.
Yeah.
Sweet serendipity.
Yes.
Out of curiosity, do you have a physical copy of your book?
Yeah.
Because I have not seen the cover yet.
Ooh.
No, by the
Ooh,
way.
I
There we
like
go.
that.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
That is lovely.
Apparently the cover work seems to be doing well. People seem to be drawn
Yes.
to it, so.
It's good. The symbolism there and just the visual appeal by itself is pretty good. What's the back look like?
So it has my description, my bio, and then me. Oops, move this way a bit.
Oh, nice.
Went for the plain, safe choice, but worked out good. Yeah,
Yeah.
very nice.
Yeah.
And would you? And I was not fully paying attention at the start because I was social media. Would you say is that more in the adult kind of area or is it kind of YA?
YA is how it's sold as, but of course anyone can read young adults. It's not just for the young adults.
Right.
But definitely it's for everyone, but it is, because especially with the coming of age and a little bit of romance in it, a little bit more the young adult is the direction it went. And it is a bit of a lighter read as well, so because it's not too long.
Gotcha. What would you say the word count on there is? Just guesstimation.
About 25,000. So it's more of a novella.
Okay, yeah, so definitely all length. Yeah, that's an afternoon killer right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jeez.
Yes. It would be like, it's raining outside and there's nothing to do.
And it's raining in the book, probably. So and the stormy clouds on the front of it.
Oh.
That's actually, when you talk about symbolism, that was one thing I bounced off with my friend a lot, because originally I wanted a red cover, but we both agreed that it would be too much like the cardinal, the bird, which I didn't really want that bird, and also cardinal in the church sense. We were like, let's just go with the compass and the clouds. And then we get it's specifically that cardinal that I'm referring to. So it was nice having that sounding board there too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, because
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna ask you if you're gonna write more in that universe, if the story's gonna continue.
Yeah, so my next one takes place a few years later. But it's in across the empire. So the Cardinal War is set in the west, and this one will be the far east. And I'll have another map in the book, though it'll be a better map in the book. But my friend's doing it for me this time, so that's nice to have. She's a graphic artist and such, so
nice. I love a good bit.
But yeah, so it's one of the characters will be reoccurring later in the book, but otherwise it'll be new characters. But still referring to a lot of things that happened. But I'm intending it to be spoiler free. So it will make reference to the other book, but not specifics. So you could read them in either order if you wanted to.
So yeah, so not necessarily a continuation of the story, just an expansion of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
But I do have ideas from either more expansions of the world or possibly a direct sequel to the one I'm writing now, because I really got into this one.
Yeah, I love a world expanding stories. So my two books are full length novels, and I write short stories for my world expansion. And I think world expansion is just so fun because world building is my favorite aspect of. I heard you speaking about world building with Caitlyn, and yeah, world building is just. Oh God, I love it. It's so great.
I love it as well.
You get to forge the bones of a world from nothing.
Yes, they're like, this is the closest I will ever come to being God.
Yeah,
As Neil Gaiman says.
Exactly.
It's mine.
I built it. Me.
Yes, I built it. And I can take people there. It's something that, that they can hold in their hand. How cool is that?
Exactly.
So would you say that that's one of the things that you love most about being a storyteller is your ability to transport people to new places and introduce them to characters and teach them things they wouldn't know without your unique perspective?
I'd say so, yeah. That's one of my favorite things about reading too, like you said, the world building and being drawn into the world, and that's what I hope to be able to do with people as well into my world. Just let them have a break from reality for a bit.
And what, if anything, in particular, do you enjoy most about world building?
I think just creating a realistic, but I guess unrealistic in a sense because it's fantasy, but world for them to build. So I like making sure like the climate makes sense and they work within it. I like creating like jobs in it and food sources and that sort of thing. Which I've on my website I do blogs every month, and that's kind of been my little also world building a bit too. So that's helped me develop ideas and story for my other stories too.
Nice.
See, it's you kind of touched on a question that I was going to get to, and that is how grounded in this world is your world building. The physics, for example, of my world are very grounded in real world physics. And so I always like to see what authors do with that, like how grounded in the real world is their world in terms of the physics and the history, and how much did they take from here and directly transplant.
Well, it's definitely not a modern world for sure. It does take place in more of like medieval-ish times with more like taverns and small towns feels, that sort of world. And then of course the wings aren't grounded in reality, but otherwise I do have like realistic food sources and things like that. In climates that would make sense in, like I did look up for my current one because it's a lake and not quite a mountain, but a large cliff. And I was like, does that affect temperature or does that affect rainfall? So I was looking up real life things for elements like that.
And with the flight, did you go through the lengths of kind of trying to explain how it is these humanoids fly, or did you just chalk it up to it's a fantasy story, live with it?
So I do make reference to it in the first one that it's a ceremony that takes place, that they have to go through, and there's a particular person that has to do the ceremony. In the second book, that was one of the feedbacks I got that I should expand on it a little bit more. And the second one, I actually talk about who the people are that do the ceremony and the almost cult-like nature of them a little bit. And I might even do a short story just about them because I now find them interesting. More interesting, yeah. I should say. Like I've created more of a character with them.
Very nice. Yeah, because I have a specific race in my own work that flies, humanoids that fly, and I went through a fairly decent amount of explanation of why it is these seemingly humanoid beings can fly. Because like I said, I like to be grounded in, if not reality, at least logic.
Yeah. I do talk about some of the differences. Like the two messengers brothers one is very long, thin wings, and one's very broad. So I do talk about differences in that sense, how that affects their flight and that sort of thing, and how weather, like rain, affects their wings. And so I talk about some elements of it, but I plan to go a little bit more in detail.
Lovely. I'm a sucker for the nitty gritty of world building aspects. Like I said, that's one of my absolute favorite things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because it's so much better when you can put in little details. I don't know why it is, but I just seem to find that to be sort of my jam. Is like, okay, this person took the time to, put in this thing that seems really obscure and maybe not necessarily important to everybody else, but it's in there because they actually cared enough about the story to put in little details.
Yeah.
Well, and not only that, the little details flesh it out. Mm-hmm. It's if there's little details, that's a good indication that they spend time thinking about all of this, and they decided to put in little breadcrumbs of their train of thought that led to the whole expanded thing. And it's a sign that there was actual genuine effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes
And
sense.
I would have to say that that's probably one of the biggest pet peeves that a lot of people have with YA sometimes. What, if any way, do you feel like you were able to overcome that and sort of be different than most other YA on the shelf?
I think partly because I wasn't initially writing towards a YA audience. It just kind of ended up that way. So I wasn't necessarily thinking about going into those tropes. But I think I just focused on the character development, made sure their story kind of flowed and made sense. The story as a whole completes itself. There's definitely parts in it that I can expand upon without giving too many spoilers away. There's little, like you said, little nuggets that are little breadcrumbs of, if you catch it, you're kind of like, oh, wait a minute. I want to know more about that little bit of knowledge. So I just kind of, I just focused on the story itself and hope people like it for what it is and not necessarily comparing it to others like it or others not like it.
Well, there's a certain level of comparison that's innate. And, because that's literally how the human brain works. We compare everything we encounter to the nearest thing we can think of. That was actually a big aspect of, say, the world building in H.P. Lovecraft's work, is he said that the old ones destroyed sanity because there was nothing a human could compare them to, which is an interesting argument to make. I personally don't think that by itself is enough to shatter sanity, but he's allowed to do what he's allowed to do in his own writing. You know what I mean?
Well, it may not be enough, but they could try. Oh, and speaking of Lovecraft, what, if any, authors do you feel most influenced you to write in the genre that you write?
Probably my favorite author, Mercedes Lackey. Definitely, it's my favorite fantasy author and just author in general. My one middle shelf is literally like 3 rows of it are just Mercedes Lackey of one series that she owns or created. And especially she writes like 20 books a year or something like ridiculous like that. And they're so good and long, like they're not just short ones. As well as especially recently, Christian Britton writes Green Rider series, which I really enjoy. They're like fantasy, but kind of light fantasy, which mine is as well. So it just has like magical elements to it. It's set in the same world and same like taverns and that kind of historical time period, I suppose. But those have really gotten me into it, especially recently.
And so do you just mostly read fantasy, or what, if any, other genres do you feel like has influenced your writing?
I say historical fiction for the time periods that I like to write. Although I read a lot of Roman historical fiction, so not quite in that time period, but I do really like historical fiction as well, rather than modern.
Anybody in particular that you read?
For historical fiction, I guess, well, Naomi Novik's kind of both, because she's the one that does Dragon Napoleonic Wars. So it's kind of both. As well as a couple like MC Scott's good. I have my section right next to me, that's why I'm looking to the side.
That's okay.
And I can't remember the name of the other one I used to read, but it was one about the Emperor Vespasian, and he was really good. He wrote like 10 books, and I took Rome and classics in university, so that was really in my wheelhouse as well.
Nice. I was going to go to the comments for questions, but it would seem that the only other person that has posted a comment
is a bot.
Is a bot. So, darn it. even though we have like 4 people watching. So
Yes.
Well, hello to everyone anyway.
Feel free to pose a question. We do enjoy audience engagement.
Exactly, we do. And he's running about 10 minutes late. We have a second Zach coming on here. Yes. Yeah, the guy whose book you read. I'm just kidding. No.
I was about to say, oh God.
No.
Why would you corner me like that?
I'm just kidding. I did not do that. No, his name is Zach Adams, and he's supposed to be coming on here, but he is not here. I don't understand.
I don't understand.
So, if you would like to, would you like to read us a section of your book?
I can certainly do that. Any section in particular that I will admit I have not done many book readings, but I do have to do one on the 18th as well, so it'll be good for me to get practice.
Good practice. Yes.
I don't know. The beginning is the best, or
Well, Cait has final say, obviously, but I personally am a sucker for a love story, so I would vote for the pivotal moment in the love subplot.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Go for it.
Okay. So to find that section, because I do know where that will be. Just gonna make sure.
Dun, 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 dun,
Make sure I get the best section for you.
dun.
Okay.
We'll go from here. I don't know how long you want me to read, but
Well,
until Zach comes.
Yes.
I'll just read the whole book.
2 hours later.
2 hours later, she's read the entire book, and he's still not here. Well,
chapter 4 to the end, and then the beginning. So that'd be kind of weird, but
yeah. Yeah. Well, we do have somebody else coming at 2:30 if he does not show up. So
you have someone.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I have an Elizabeth. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just go for it.
Go for it.
Dinner was an uneventful affair. Ceridwen and Devon continued to discuss the upcoming war with the woman who Eileen believed was one of the daughters of the household. She only believed this due to the delicate and beautiful dress the woman was wearing that allowed her light, slender wings to extend from her back. The black dress flowed delicately around the woman, and she sat in a very distinguished manner. Discussions of all sorts filtered around her, but Eileen remained silent and filled herself with delicious foods that she had never seen before. She only took breaks to gaze at the gorgeous dining hall around her. Never before had she seen something at this level of grandeur. From the oversized golden chair at the head of the table, with black velvet fabric, to the fireplace crackling behind her. Servants scurried in and out of the large room carrying silver plates, ensuring that everyone was fed and provided appropriate beverages. The table itself was huge. The minstrel group, the 2 messengers, Eileen, and the Manor family took up only a portion of the table. Despite the appealing decorations, she could only not help but be drawn to the young messenger and blushed a few times as he caught her looking his way. She grinned when she heard him laugh at something his brother said, but quickly looked away when his gaze drifted back to her. And I do see that Zach is here, so I don't know if I should keep going.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry. That is okay.
Don't want to steal his time.
You are fashionably late.
Yeah, I was having issues with my internet.
Yeah, it'll do it every time.
That is okay.
We got a bit of a blush romance there. And a bit of description of the dining hall.
Well, it
still
is
good
lovely.
for me.
So, you can either feel free to continue to hang here for as long until you need to go or whatever.
Yeah, I will
But-
probably head out just because I am on my lunch break right now.
Okay.
Luckily, I work
Oh
from
wow,
home.
you're at work.
Well, I work from home, so
Oh, I got you.
my work
Okay.
is like next to me
I was
on my
about
laptop.
to say
So
the dedication. Oh my gosh, you showed up here while you're at work. Oh man.
yeah, no, I work over there.
Okay. Okay.
Like, I'm on my iPad, and then I'll move back to my computer.
All right. Well, it was lovely meeting you, Jennifer,
Yeah, it was
and
fantastic.
we would love to have you on anything else that we're doing. If you want to
Perfect.
come back.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much for everything.
Absolutely.
Nice meeting you both, or all three of you. I met you briefly, Zach.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, all right. Hello,
Hi,
Zach with an H.
that is me. How's everybody doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Would you like to introduce yourself for the viewers?
I am, well, obviously Zach Adams, author of Dead Man Walking, which is my debut. Came out September of this year. It is a contemporary fantasy horror mystery set in Alaska, where I live. And it follows Isaac Falcone, who is a library assistant and writer himself. As
wow.
he finds himself suddenly, reality around him is collapsing and nobody can figure out why. And he is somehow stuck at the center of this plot to unmake everything.
Very high stakes.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. I'd rather like that. Do you have a physical copy of your book?
I do, actually, right here.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
The artist I hired, I'm very happy with him. I'm looking forward to working with him again. So to hear Shahid on Fiverr.com, he's very talented. If anyone wants to check him out.
Oh, yeah. I found mine on Fiverr as well.
Yeah, I like him. This was actually his first try. I think I had 3 notes on his first draft, and then we were good.
I was a little bit pickier. My cover went through quite a few edits, but I was very happy with my artists as well. They just bing bang boom made them, no problem.
Yeah, sometimes it just works that way, you know.
Indeed. So, Caitlyn, do you want to start with grilling him or?
Well, I mean, if you want to start, you can.
Oh yeah. So you said you published it just recently, right?
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take you to write?
Well, the actual work, about 5, maybe 7 years, because I'm very slow. The characters and concepts I had started putting together as far back as age 8. Isaac himself is actually the 3rd version of a character that went through several completely unrelated mutations throughout that time. He was a superhero when I was a little kid, and then he was just a random relative of a supporting character in another story I started when I was 12, I want to say, or maybe 10. And then I started putting more emphasis on him as a character until I finally, Dead Man Walking just became my primary project.
Gotcha. How old are you now?
26.
26. From 8
So,
to
yeah.
almost 2 decades. That's a long time to do on something.
Yeah, building. I mean, I have a lot of characters. My Google Drive is full of notes, probably 300 to 500 pages of bios and translations and maps and outlines.
That's
Oh wow.
That's
I
even
spend more time on that than anything else.
That's even more than my goodness. Well, quite a bit. Not gonna lie to you. That's about, I don't know, 20 or 30 times what I have in terms of supporting documentation. I keep a lot of it here.
Mine is just chaos.
Same. Mine is not organized in any meaningful way at all.
Yeah, I don't actually fix or update anything until I need it, and so I go back and I'm like, oh, I forgot that I had that document there from 5 years past.
Right.
Or you're like, I should probably go back and read through all of this before I start on the next one.
Right?
Because there might be
Oh, I
something
forgot.
important in here.
I meant to do this thing here.
Now tell me if you do anything like this. A lot of the time, I'll think of something that I want to use in what I'm currently writing. So instead of putting it in my supporting documentation, I'll just put it in the actual manuscript file just beneath what I'm currently writing, and figure out where to plug it in as I write my story. You do anything like that?
Kinda, yeah. Sometimes I'll leave little notes in the document for myself. Other times I'll come up with an idea as I'm writing and I'll just throw it in there, and then I'll come back later as I'm comparing between the outline notes and the manuscript itself, and then I'll remember that I threw a random thing in there, and I'm like, completely forgot.
So you would consider yourself to be a mixture of an engineer and a gardener?
Yeah, I try to stay organized, even though I'm terrible at it. Like I said, my notes are chaos, and I'll go through there and until I get bored, and then jump back into the story, and then hit a wall and have to go back to notes, and I'm bouncing back and forth.
And so, do you create any kind of specific outline for your story when you get started, or do you just go off of notes?
I do have outlines. I found a few different worksheets that I was been very thankful for in the past few years, and I'll fill those out, but I'll keep editing them as I'm working, and so the plot will change many times while I'm still finalizing it. Dead Man Walking actually went through some of the plot actually changed while I was in the final editing phase.
Oh, wow.
And
yeah.
with doing that, are you doing that because you had an idea that you felt was better, or did you make the change to make the existing what did you make the change to make the stuff that was unchanged more cohesive?
A bit of both, yeah. Sometimes I'll come up with a better idea and I'll think it'll fit better, or I'll think of a way that I can improve on something that's already there.
Yeah, there's a lot of I too consider myself almost right down the middle hybrid between engineer and gardener, and I found a lot of my best ideas were just in the moment, usually world building stuff that I had to make some small changes to my outline to accommodate, but it added so much depth to that aspect of the world. I had to throw it in.
Right. I like when certain things come out like that, when you're just in the process and think, oh, that works.
Yeah.
Like I've oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask. So, what's a good example of that in your world? Like you say, it's a kind of a monster story slash end of the world story. So, like, what's an example of something you added in to make everything more cohesive and fleshed out?
Well, if I can think about it for a second. It's been a while since I actually dove into it in the past few months, but
You're like, I gotta go back
because
and
there
read
are
my own book.
because there are 3 different timelines covered throughout it, 2 of which belong to the main character, and 1 of which is a series of partial stories that he finds that help progress his journey while also giving a bit more background on their universe. And there were parts of those timelines that I changed and updated, trying not to spoil anything, because I've got 6 more books planned in this series.
There.
Oh, wow.
And that's I've got 4. The next 3 mostly plotted out, and then I have a trilogy coming after that I haven't quite dug into yet, but I know the major things that need to happen. And then I have all these random ideas for spin-offs and prequels and whatever else. But anyways, sorry, back to your question. have a very short attention span.
It happens.
Same.
But actually, yeah, there is a good example. There's a scene in which a character in one of those stories that Isaac discovers, he meets this sort of an eldritch deity. I heard you talking about Lovecraft earlier. I'm also a fan of his work.
Yes.
And so he meets this being who sets him on a similar journey, shows him another fractured story like Isaac is finding. And the scene between them, I didn't come up with until I was in that chapter. And I kept refining it throughout each phase until I finally let it out. But it's this whole scene where he meets this this big wolfish monster who's got this incredible aura of power about it and defies all logic of their world, and shows him this story, and it disrupts his entire worldview.
So something you said just now. You said you added a scene. So do I take that to mean that you outline your story almost scene by scene?
Yeah, I actually approach it kind of like a screenplay in some forms. I have two different worksheets that I use. One is a beat sheet for like a screenplay, and one is more of a traditional story like novel outline. And I'll compare them both and see if anything doesn't line up. But I do try to go like, here's this scene, and a chapter can have multiple scenes in it depending on what needs to happen. But yeah, so I do it in sections.
See, I'm not that bit by bit. My outline looks much broader, and I don't think I've ever. Well, that's not true. I've had some scenes that I knew needed to be in there, and I had a rough idea for how they were going to go before I got to writing them. But my outlines are very general in terms. I just have like a general pace of the story and stuff that needs to happen beat by beat in terms of the overall story arc, so that the story progresses as it should. And then I freeform all of my scenes virtually.
Right. See, I do kind of similar because I started my outlines when I do actually work on them. I'll do these big, broad bulks of text, and then I'll figure out where each concept changes or where a scene change might work, and divide it up and figure out like, okay, this can be a chapter ending, this can be, whatever else. So yeah, there are definitely steps, and I probably go through more drafts of the outline than I do the story itself.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you do a lot of developmental editing before you even sit down to lay on prose.
Yes and no. It's I start there, and then I keep doing them both at the same time, going back and forth until I'm really happy with it, which can take forever with me.
Well, it's good to be persnickety. You definitely want to do everything you can to make it the best thing you can create.
Right, exactly.
So, is there any particular method that you use when you do it? Like, so you start from a certain point and you, like, say, for instance, if you were to do like a lather, rinse, repeat method, where you, like, did 3 to 5 chapters and then you start from, like, the beginning chapter and start editing that while you are continuing to write the rest of it?
That's actually kind of the approach. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry, but
No, you're good.
I'm doing a similar approach to that with my current the next book in the Ivyverse series, A World Apart, where because this one actually has 2 protagonists, whereas Dead Man Walking just has the one, with a few diversions to other characters that he needs to see the perspective of. But I am doing it in sections where I have a few chapters with one character, and then when I finish that, I'll sort of do little tweaks and edits on those while I'm working on the next section with the other character. But for the most part, I would say my I just have a color by numbers process. Once I have the skeleton and the rules, I just fill it in. Just treat it all like an algebra problem.
Oh, algebra. There's probably, the book that made me cry. Algebra.
Honestly, same. Although I got better at math throughout like late high school. Although I did drop out of algebra 2.
It's like, oh man, sorry, but it's like my grandfather used to say, because that was the one thing. Being a creative person, it's just like it's so much structure. Trying to do math, and it was the one thing that I was like, oh, I can do everything else, English, history, whatever, It's like, but this math is kicking my ass.
Right,
And
yeah.
he was, he was like, well, that's because numbers are a human construct, and that's why they're foreign to you. And I was like, not really sure what you're calling me, but
We're writers. We're not human.
exactly. We're relatively human.
Quasi-human.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just in general not a very good student, although I did fairly well in my English classes, and I had a lot of support from my teachers. I just, like I said before, very short attention span, and I'm very impatient. But if I could find a specific assignment or subject matter that I could hook myself into, then I would do really well in it. I got through most of my high school English classes because I had a big Beatles phase. I was just obsessed with the Beatles for the first couple of years of high school. I've had other similar phases, but anytime I would have to do a creative writing assignment, I was like, okay, Beatles fan fiction.
Right.
Oh,
wow.
Reminds me, I read a story of David Tennant, who when he was in school, he would get in trouble because all of his assignments were Doctor Who fan fiction, and then he went on to be the best Doctor.
Exactly. Oh, man. Well, do you think that somehow you could revive the Beatles?
I don't think so. I do have musical projects going on. I'm working on a concept album following the story of Dead Man Walking with my partner, John Valentine. But I don't know if I could ever compare myself. Those guys are my heroes.
Yeah. Do you, well, I mean, at least create a version of them in your fiction.
Yeah. I could possibly do something like that, make a little tribute. Something like maybe what Eric Idle did back in the 70s. The Ruddles.
Yeah. Oh, man. So, what, if anything, do you feel like has influenced your creativity, aside from your taste in music?
A lot of things, really. I was a much bigger reader as a kid than I am now. I'm trying to slowly get it back, but and I would read pretty much anything. Leave me unsupervised long enough, I'll read the back of a cereal box.
Same.
And comic books.
Words on it.
Yep, exactly. Anything with a story, though. Like I've seen a lot of people turn their noses up at taking literary influence from, say, films, TV, video games, and comics. And I'm a huge comic book nerd. I adore the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I grew up playing Kingdom Hearts, which the absolute bonkers nature of the plot of those games is a huge influence on me. And I'm a big fan of the concept of fairy tale time and logic, and just make time and the physics of the world bend to whatever the story needs to do. And if it worked for the Grimm brothers, excuse me, and Tolkien, then why not? And if it works for Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Yes. Oh, so I'm going to ask you. So I'm going to ask you also another very important question, because I can't talk. And this will be if you can continue to hang out with us. Do you watch anime?
A little bit. I have yet to actually get fully into any specific show, but I have a lot of friends and relatives who are big anime fans, and I'll watch with them, and I do like it. I'm just lazy at getting into unfamiliar things.
It's understandable. I do want to jump back. So you said something that tells me that me and you have a little bit in common, at least. You said you draw literary inspiration from everything, and me and Caitlyn have a running joke that I feed my brain a steady diet of cocaine and potato chips. Intellectually speaking, it's a metaphor.
Fair enough.
So, anyways, but no, I literally I do the exact same thing. I draw inspiration from everything. Everything has something you can get something out of in terms of literary quality, because everything that exists in terms of storytelling and media and entertainment, it was created by humans,
Right.
and therefore it has something to teach you about humans. And that's what being a good storyteller is communicating things about humans to humans in a way that's interesting. That's what's really, really makes a good storyteller. And so, what are your favorite non-book things to draw inspiration from? Because, like I said, I grab stuff from video games and movies and shows and comic books and memes. There's literally several memes in my novels that I'm still waiting for people to find. But I want to expand on that more with you.
Well, like I said before, I'm a lifelong Kingdom Hearts fan, and that's been a huge influence on my approach to physics and magic and just, logic or the lack thereof in general. And as long as it follows its own internal logic, then that's all that I feel counts. So I love that, and music is a big one for me. I actually have a small playlist on Spotify of a collection of songs that were specific influences on Dead Man Walking, the biggest one being Once in a Lifetime by the Talking Heads. Just the concept in the lyrics, various timelines and how things can be different, got my brain moving, and John and I are actually working on a cover of that as we speak. Let's see, what other media?
See, and that's while you're stewing it over, I'm just gonna kind of with you on the music one, especially on my channel. Not to plug myself too much, but I have a series on my channel called Music Monday, and that's where we break down songs and look at the literary value of specific songs, because songwriting and writing prose are not so different. And when you really look at the way some songs are structured and the poetic quality of the language, and especially some songs that tell stories, you learn how to say so much in so few words. And music it's great brain fodder for writing bigger stuff.
And some of my favorite bands, like I said, the Beatles are a big one, and they told a lot of great short stories with their music. And Sparks is another great one that I discovered in the past few years that I wish more people knew about. And thankfully, they're starting to get the recognition they deserve 50 years on into their career.
Is that a band?
Yeah, it's a duo of brothers, Russell and Ron Mael. They recently had a documentary come out about them, the Sparks Brothers, made by Edgar Wright. And then there was their musical Annette, starring Adam Driver, Marion Cotillard, and Simon Helberg. That was very interesting. But they're really good storytellers in their music, and each song has its own little kind of jagged narrative without really meaning much of anything. It's very sarcastic and kind of removed, but it still makes sense in and of itself.
There's someone how are you familiar with Starset?
I may have heard the name somewhere, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so Starset is kind of the same thing. They're a rock band that has a narrative they're telling through their music, and all of their albums are free on YouTube. So I highly recommend you check them out. Absolutely great music.
Yeah, and with Sparks, like, it's not any one narrative. Like, each song has its own thing. Like, they're one of their biggest songs, "This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us," is 3 verses of these individual stories that change halfway through and become much darker, and it's very twisted and unexpected in its way. And like you were saying, I really like when you can take a song and tell such a clear story with very few words, and it really helps taking influence from that can really help build the imagery, I feel like. Because then, you don't need to have 1,000 pages. I mean, and it's good if a book wants to be 1,000 pages long, if it's that epic style, but just knowing that it doesn't necessarily have to be like that, and you can still be just as clear and just as effective.
Oh yeah, and I think a lot of the time there's something to be said for shortening it up. For a lot of people, especially in the modern era, people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, and so it's important to be able to say what you have to say in a short enough time frame to where you still have people's attention.
Right.
So yeah, there's nothing wrong with saying what you need to say in 5 words instead of 20. In fact, it's a very valuable skill.
That's the exact same reason that I have yet to actually read The Lord of the Rings. I have a copy of it sitting next to me, and I keep trying to read it, and I love it, and I love all of this concepts and the Middle-earth mythology, but it just hurts my brain.
that it's so large. Well, you do realize it's 6 books in 1 volume, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And like I said, I do respect it. I'm a big Tolkien fan, and what I know of his work through other media, like the movies and video games and everything else, I'm very thankful for those. Otherwise, I wouldn't know very much about it at all. But actually trying to read the books is just so dense, and not in dense in like a dumb way, but dense in like a star is dense, or a black hole. It's massive.
Yeah. Yes, it's like this is. Katie would like to know what your book is called.
Oh, Dead Man Walking.
Yeah.
Dead Man Walking. And do you write under Zach Adams as well? Good.
Yep.
And so you said one more time. I need to be refreshed so I can remember the question. What did you say your plot, generally speaking, was?
It is so Isaac, he's just living his life. He's just a normal guy living in Alaska. He's working at the local library, wants to be a writer, but hasn't managed anything yet. And he discovers a part of a story from this ancient otherworldly species. And suddenly reality is unraveling around him, and nobody can figure out why, or why he's at the center of it. And so he has to solve this mystery and figure out who the bad guy actually is and stop them before time literally runs out.
Okay. So obviously that's a very high stakes scenario. Is that scenario happening organically as a result of the natural progression of your world's physics, and the hero is trying to stop something that occurs naturally, or is this something artificial that sentient beings have brought about?
Actually, kind of both, and I'm going to try not to spoil it too much, but it was due to a violation of the laws of their multiverse. And it's turned him into basically a walking paradox.
That's I might have to check out your book. This sounds like it could be very good.
Yes.
I hope you enjoy it.
Ooh, we'll have to.
You'll see a review on my channel.
Yes. Ooh, hey, we could add him to the queue for the roundtable.
We could add his book to the queue for the roundtable.
Yes.
And Katie would even be on board because she likes horror.
Yes, Katie would even be on board. Speaking of Katie, do you have any questions for Zach with an H? Because she says that she is watching. Yeah. She says, "Oh, cool! I love horror."
Okay.
Like, yeah, it sounds interesting.
I'm looking at
Down.
your numbers of reviews and stuff, and it looks like you're kind of in the same boat as me right now, where you're really trying to get off the ground.
Yeah, like I said, this is my very first ever completed project, and it's only been out for a couple of months, so I'm still trying to get it out there, and build up some buzz around it.
But I mean, if he's around the same level as you, only having been out for a couple of months.
Well, no, I was being generous. I'm a little further ahead in terms of
I
the
was
reviews.
about to say, oh my god. Oh man.
All right.
Oh, Katie asks, is this your first book?
It is. It's not the first I've tried to write, but it is the first I've ever finished.
Okay.
Like I was saying earlier, it started as a spin-off from another story I started that I do intend to include in the Ivyverse still, because I still like those characters and their concepts.
Oh. And Katie wants to see the cover of your book again.
Can you see it?
There we go. Yep. There it is.
Yep. By Tukir Shahid off of Fiverr.com. Very talented artist and very reasonable rate.
And it looks quite good.
Thank you.
And it's very intriguing and very, very eye-catching. So, yeah.
I'm glad you think so.
Yeah, it would definitely catch my attention if I were looking at it in a bookstore.
It's one of those places where you opted for simplicity and it paid off.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, I had very few notes for him. I think I had maybe at a maximum 3 notes on his original draft. And he was very easy to communicate with, and it took not very much time.
Mm-hmm. And Katie agrees.
Well, thank you. I'll pass the word.
So you said that this came from a concept that you had before, and you mentioned that you have another trilogy. Are all of your works kind of like Lovecraft? Are all of your works sort of tethered to each other in almost an anthology-like format, or are they separate?
They are. It's all the same universe, and they share characters and concepts, and they do cross over in various ways. I think of it more like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, how we had the solo stories starting, you had Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Captain America, and then you get the Avengers. And that's sort of the way I like to think about it. But I also grew up on things like Harry Potter, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where you start out with your group and build up the world from the beginning. So I'm kind of trying to do it a bit of both.
So what, if anything, do you do to keep yourself from getting lost in creating such an expanded universe?
Well, like I was saying before, my Google Drive has so much, such a mess of notes on there, and I do spend a lot of time sorting through that and finding things that I've forgotten about and updating. And it does help. I have like a timeline document that I think stretches on 20 pages by now, of just bullet points of dates and things. I have a few hundred pages of just character bios. And I find myself coming up with the plots in their bios too. I'll figure out what their life needs to be, how things need to happen for them. And like, there's that story right there.
So as you are crafting the sort of the sketches of your characters, it automatically just comes up what their purpose is, as well as their backstory and other things like that.
Yeah, every part sort of just evolves at the same time. I'm bad at focusing on any one task. I'm very inattentive and impatient.
Well, that's just the nature of being a creative person, I think, because creativity in itself is chaos.
Yep. And I like just going into this universe and just diving in there into the mess and sorting out, because that makes it feel to me like the real world, because the real world is chaos. So
yes,
why shouldn't the fake world be chaos?
Exactly. But see, this is chaos that you personally get to define. So you get to create the order. Exactly.
It appeals to my ego issues, I will say.
Yes, you're like, this is the time that I get to play God.
Yes, exactly. Just I am in control, and if this character wants to spend 3 days crossing a room, then the next scene he'll be chased by a werewolf. What they get until they behave. The beatings will continue until morale improves.
Existential dread will continue until sanity improves.
Like, relative sanity, anyway.
Relative, yes.
All right, sir. I just officially ordered my paperback copy of your book. Expect the review on my channel as soon as I can get to it.
I'm looking forward to it. I hope you enjoy it.
So excited. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Because we are definitely because this has been absolutely amazing meeting you and everything because
Thank
you are he's one of us, Zach, I think.
One of us. One of
Maybe.
us.
One of us. Yes. And the fact that you like to do extensive world building, plus you also do horror, I think he just might be the thing to help us convert Katie.
Perhaps he can get to her in a way that we. So down there, the concierge of the author, she is one of our other close associates. We do lives with her, and she's part of some of our long-term business plans. I should say part of the long-term business plan, really, not just some. But anyways, she's a little bit of a heathen and a pleb where taste in literature is concerned, and frankly, it disgusts me. And so we need someone who can talk some fucking sense into her.
Translation of that is she doesn't like fantasy or anything that's got like extensive like world building and stuff. But the fact that you're taking such a, I guess you could say, Lovecraftian approach to this, being works. Yeah. So, could introduce her to.
Well, I hope so.
And I'm still full disclosure, I'm still dipping my toes into Lovecraft. I got a bunch of his short stories in little collection books, and I haven't even finished one yet because I'm quickly finding that I like his imagination. I do not like his writing.
Yeah, some of them can be a little bit hard to follow. I do enjoy the surreal element of it, and that is definitely one thing I try to emulate myself as a fan. But it can be kind of hard to follow. I have one. I forget which collection it's from. It's just the complete works of Lovecraft that I picked up at Barnes and Noble, and I would dig it out, but it's buried in a box in my room as a disaster.
Same. Yeah, that's a big old samesies, my friend. I could turn my camera and show you a clusterfuck of piles, but it's just a collection of piles.
Yeah, I just got papers, a box of books, and just whatever I could fit in here because I'm in a temporary living situation right now. It's been a rough couple of years for everybody.
Oh, God. Yeah, let's not get into that. Let's keep it light, my friend.
Just acknowledge it.
Yes, I feel you. I know.
Exactly. Yes, you'll be like Stressmas Day. The
but I am also
having to deal with stuff.
But and that's another thing I was saying earlier. Sort of dipping my toes into the big literary greats, the big names like Lovecraft and Tolkien and et cetera, because I have such a short attention span, and it really dropped off after high school. Because as a kid, I could read pretty much anything and no issue. But now, I'll go months and like, I haven't read something in a while, and then I'll pick up a book I've already read a million times, like Hitchhiker's Guide or something. I'm slowly getting it back. It is one of my favorites. I have the complete collection and plus the 6 books that Ian Colfer finished, which I was pleasantly surprised by. He does a good Adams impersonation. I love Artemis Fowl. So
yes,
there are certain books that have high reread potential. Unfortunately, I think most of mine are currently packed. But they are currently packed. But yeah, some books, every time you reread them, you get a little bit more out. Well, I won't say every, but for at least the first couple reads, it's certainly you get something new every time you read it.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, well, especially people like Pierce Brown.
Yes. Yes, there's a lot to digest with his work. Oh, I could go on and on about Pierce. I sent him a copy of my debut novel because he was a huge inspiration to my writing style and my narrative style. If you like science fiction at all, yeah, check out Red Rising, Pierce Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
I'm gonna have to do
list.
I'm gonna have to do a series review on my channel talking about it because I could get like 5 videos out of that.
Yeah, I'm a big sci-fi fan. Like I said, Hitchhiker's Guide is an all-time favorite. I'm a big Doctor Who fan. I actually have a tattoo of the TARDIS on my arm.
What?
I grew up on Star Trek and Star Wars. If I wasn't wearing 2 shirts, I would show you.
Oh man.
But yeah, it's just the TARDIS on my right shoulder. But so I love all that kind of stuff, and I'm actually planning to branch off into more of the sci-fi territory, just to show my love for Douglas Adams. And I love his style, just minimalistic, sarcastic. He can have really dark and intense stories, things that seem like they should be really upsetting, like the destruction of the planet Earth, while it's still being very lighthearted and fun tale. And I really like that.
Yeah,
that's one thing I tried to think about while I was working on my own things, is how to take these dark stories and still approach it with a slightly removed sort of sarcastic sense of humor, like I would any other situation in my life. It's just a coping mechanism, you know.
Oh yeah. So you would say that you approach kind of dark, seemingly heavy situations with a more flippant sort of cavalier attitude.
A bit, yeah, and it can be a problem as when I go through edits, I'll find a scene where I'll like, oh, that was a little bit too dark and a little bit of the wrong attitude, so maybe take that out. But for the most part, yeah, I'll just think of what I would do in these situations, and that would be, oh, I'm gonna laugh uncomfortably and make jokes and run away. So why wouldn't Isaac do the same thing?
Right, exactly. Oh my goodness. So, that brings up an interesting question. When talking about things like POV and narration, what tense is your book written
So
in?
it's
Like POV.
So I do third person. I used to try to do first person, but for some reason I just found it even more difficult. And so the narrator, I definitely tend to treat as sort of a character in and of themselves, which can be a blessing and a curse. It confuses some people, but I find it fun. I'm not a fan of the fourth wall. I like sort of winking at the camera. And a lot of my favorite shows and movies have done things like that. Like, I'm a big fan of Community and Abed Nadir, one of my all-time favorite fictional characters. I love their approach to meta humor, and you know you're watching a show, and some of them know they're watching a show. And like Deadpool, the Marvel comics, and to some extent She-Hulk and the Joker from DC. So I'm a big fan of things like that.
Yeah. So you would encourage people to write more fiction where the narrator actually has an opinion on what's going on?
I would say just, people can do whatever they want and not be so strict about rules. Like, as long as one fictional universe follows its own internal rules, I don't think there's any set rules for all of fiction. And I've seen a lot of critics out there who are so just snotty, like, oh no, it has to be done this way, and this is the only way that something can make sense. Like, no, it can be a comic book just without the pictures.
Right, exactly.
And I like taking a moment to like comment on the characters and have them comment on each other, and have the character talk to the narration. And so yeah, the fourth wall is flimsy at best.
Marvel would agree.
I hope so. I like their approach. I'm a big fan of like WandaVision and Loki. It's funny like how long I've been working on Dead Man Walking, watching those shows, how much of those their concepts I respect enough that I have done similar things, like not as effectively or not as well maybe, but the comics themselves are a big influence, so the shows definitely show some of that. Like, I'm so glad they're doing things like this.
Yes. Well, if you would like, you can continue to hang out with us here. Because our next guest is coming on, and we can continue to chat and stuff about different things. And you can actually ask her questions too if you want. Just make this.
I may be able to stay for a few minutes.
Okay.
I'm with my grandmother, so I might have to go help with some things.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
should be able to stick around for a bit.
Okay, so if you want to hang until you need to go or whatever, feel free to do so.
Not a problem.
Yeah. Yep. Because I'm not
Fun
about
talking
just
to you guys.
exactly. We will make you a part of the thing. Because this has been awesome.
I agree. I'm glad you think so. Hi.
Hello. Would you introduce yourself?
So, my name's Elizabeth Morris, and I'm the author of the Blood of the Beast series, and there's 2 books in the series right now that are published. I'm working on the 3rd one, and yeah, that's a little bit about me. I don't have my books right now with me. I can't show them. They're actually in my RV right now. We're in a hotel, but yeah.
Oh, but you made time to come on here and hang
Yes.
with us.
Yes.
It's just dedication. So, would you tell us a little bit about your books?
Okay, so my first book is called Tiger's Blood, and it's about a world called By Totem. A lot of people mispronounce that, but it's By Totem. A lot of people mispronounce it, but it's called the world By Totem. There are creatures called Bloods, and they are half animal, half human shapeshifters.
Mm-hmm.
And
now you're speaking my language.
Yeah. Yeah. So the main character, she's the rarest blood of them all, the white tiger blood, and she sets off on a journey to go to the kingdom of the lion bloods to murder the lion blood king, who murdered all the tiger bloods. So it's kind of like a revenge seeking story in the first book. And she befriends a wolf blood, a lion blood, and an eagle blood who help her. So that's the first book. And the second book is the sequel, which is Rise of the Rebels. And so Rise of the Rebels takes place a few months or a year after the events of the first book. And there's a new king. Well, I don't want to spoil, but so basically there's another person seeking revenge against the main cast, and they meet new bloods who they either become friends or foes. I'm not going to spoil it, but in the second book there's a lot of stuff that's happening. There's a kidnapping, there's drama, there's fights, there's so much that's happening. I can't explain it all at once, but that's the premise of both my books.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you getting that, Caitlyn?
Oh, yes, I see.
What was that?
There it is.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
I like that.
That's
And
the
then-
first one. Yep, that's my second one.
Yes.
Good
Yeah.
covers.
Nice.
Thank you.
I'll have to check those out. That sounds really good.
Thank you.
So, do either of you fellows have questions for her before I decide to grill her?
So Elizabeth, you've stepped in. You've by coincidence stepped into my arena. I don't know if you're familiar with me at all, but I too am an author. Epic fantasy is my game, and I too deal in animal shapeshifters.
Yeah.
So we could have a conversation, and we're going to. What I want to know, did you try to create as much of your own mythos as you could, or are you borrowing heavily from existing lore? And is yours a strictly magical thing? Is there a somewhat of a scientific flavor to it? I want to hear nitty gritty about your shapeshifters.
Okay. So I kind of make it up as I go along. I kind of make my own mythos, like you said. But there is magic. I'm not going to spoil because the magic isn't really... It's evolving as the story's coming, so I don't want to like dive into that too much. But there are certain shapeshifters who are very magical and basically control the world. But yeah, the magic system hasn't really been developed as much as I would like to yet, but it's getting there in book 3. The shapeshifters are focused. They're like medieval times, I guess medieval times, and they can shapeshift at any time, and it takes like a great deal amount of energy. Like same thing as energy of getting out of bed, energy of going on a run, same energy like that. It just takes energy to mutate, shift into their forms, and and it depends on what type of blood you are. If you're like a bigger blood, like say there's whales, so there's a whale, then you won't shapeshift as often, and you'll have to be near the water, of course. But the whales don't shapeshift as often because it takes a great deal amount of energy to shift into such a big creature.
Right.
So, but that's kind of the premise of what happens in my shape-shifting world. So, yeah.
Okay. I hear some similarities to mine and some branches off. I did want to ask, so you have all kinds of different animals. Do they just assume straight up the form of the animal, or are they anthropomorphized versions?
Can you repeat that?
So are they like werewolves, or do they just become just a straight up wolf?
Just become straight up a wolf.
Okay.
So, they just become straight up the animal. They're not half or anything. They shift into the animal, so they're straight up the animal.
Okay, so that's another distinct difference from mine. Mine are hybrid versions.
Yeah.
That actually kind of reminds me of the Animorph series by Kay Applegate. That was a big favorite sci-fi action of mine when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think in the Animorph series, though, you can only shift like every 2 hours or something like that.
Right, like there's a time limit, or
there's
get
a time limit you can shift.
Forever.
Yeah, that's non-existent. You can shift any time in my books. So.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just reminded me of like how they can change back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's almost in a sense what Sherilyn Kenyon did with some of her shifting fiction. Was as long as you had a particular amount of energy stored, you could, but once that was out, you couldn't, and you would have to wait for it. Like it had a certain time limit, like you would have to wait for it to build back up before you were able to do it again.
I like the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. Anytime someone wants to use magic, it takes something out of them and they gotta recharge.
Yeah. Similar to what I am, but they kind of just have to rest. Like they kind of be like, okay, let me take a break, and then rebuild their energy, kind of like with food. Like same thing we do every day. They're kind of like humans in that way, where like if you go on a run, you kind of just have to drink some water or eat a meal, and you're like replenished basically.
Yeah, very grounded in existing common sense, so to speak.
Yeah.
Which kind of reminds me also of a series that Robin Hobb wrote, where these mages, in order to use magic, the downside was they had to stay very, very fat. I walked away for 1 second and come back to another person on the stream. Yes, Katie. We have more people. If you would like to ask her questions, please feel free to do so. Yes, we are multiplying. Which is good. One of us. Yes. Oh, so what if any adverse effects or downsides are there to your characters having magical abilities?
So the downsides, there are certain, like I mentioned before, certain characters have abilities to control the world. Like the power will go to their head if they, if they take it the wrong way. But the downsides of magic are, I'm trying to think, like it's a heavy burden, kind of having so much magic, in my world, and not a lot of people have the abilities that these certain groups do. But like some people can talk to certain other people. I'm trying not to like spoil, but it's just like a heavy burden on them, all this power, and sometimes it could crush them like mentally and physically. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so you don't have so much. And by the way, Caitlyn, highlight the latest comment.
Yes.
But you don't have necessarily any hard world building consequences to your magic. It's more so the organic, natural consequences of
Yes.
people who wield power.
Yes.
And of course, that is its own thing to consider all by itself. So if that's well done, that's absolutely sufficient of a counterbalance.
Yeah. And Katie would like to know what your book is called.
So my first book is Tiger's Blood, and my name, where is it? Right here, Elizabeth Morris. That's my author name and my real name. So it's Tiger's Blood, and then Rise of the Rebels is the second one, and they're both by right here, Elizabeth Morris. So.
Nice. So, and you said that your genre is fantasy.
Yes, it's some people might consider it young adult. It has some adult themes, but I would consider it young adult fantasy.
So, what if any boundaries do you feel like you push to make it possibly considered not YA?
So there's some like sexual scenes, I would say, that wouldn't really be considered YA. And there's some portrays of violence and like I'm trying to think of this, like there's like a mental illness, mental breakdown kind of thing in there that's not really YA. Like she has a complete breakdown and it's just it's not really for adults, but like or for kids, I should say, for young adults. But mostly it's just the sexual scenes and things like that.
That's really all it took for you to say, because Katie heard there's gore, there's smut. I shall read it. Oh, hey, so see now, Zach, we have two people that can convert her to reading fantasy.
Perhaps. It really is good to know that all I have to do is add some spread legs and people, and she'll read my shit.
Yeah, it should be like some horror, some smut,
some horror, and some laws.
Yes.
As they say, stuff sells.
Bring the smut and the blood, and she's there.
Perhaps at the same time.
Perhaps. Oh my! Yes, like Game of Thrones. Exactly.
Oh, I have a Game of Thrones tattoo on my arm.
Nice.
Really?
Yes, that's my favorite. I could talk all day about Game of Thrones, but I don't want to. I want to talk about my books.
Yes. Ooh. Speaking of Game of Thrones, and so that obviously has influenced. Yes, as Kate says. I'd love to smoke some gore. Yes, we do, darling. And so what if any other authors have influenced you aside from George R.R. Martin?
Suzanne Collins. I like the
Mhm.
Hunger Games, the dystopian future type books. I love those books.
Mhm.
Like the Hunger Games. And trying to think what other author has influenced me besides George R. R. Martin. um, I haven't really read a book in a while. I'm kind of reading something on and off, but not consistently. I don't really know if I have any other authors that I have a big influence on or influence me really. I kind of just go with my own thing and write what I feel, write what I want, and I don't really take influence on anyone else. I just kind of do my own thing.
So, because we were talking about this earlier, Zack with an H and Zack with a K, about how we use different elements of things in the world around us to influence our fiction. So, is there anything else that you use, like movies,
music for sure? There's actually a certain scene. Hold on, I have these bookmarks here. I'm keeping these are my bookmarks that I made for my characters.
Oh, that's awesome!
Yeah. So this one is Noah, and he's a wolf blood. And there's actually a certain song that makes me think of his death. And I'm not gonna say what song, but
I was hoping.
Oh man,
I
I was hoping you would.
Okay, it's Alec Benjamin's "Let Me Down Slowly."
Oh, I know that song. Yeah.
Yes.
So it makes me every time I hear that song, I think of the scene setting up his death, like prior to his death. And it hasn't come yet. It's probably future books, but that's like my biggest influence in songs. And Kira, who is my main character right here, the tiger blood, white tiger blood.
I have a character named
A lot of her scenes. I don't know if you know Black Bear. If anybody knows Black Bear, a lot of her like emotions come from Black Bear songs for me. And Ethan, I'm trying to think what songs come to mind when I think of Ethan. Like, I don't remember what song comes to mind when I think of Ethan, but music definitely influences like certain scenes, certain certain acts or certain characters in mind for me. A lot of music.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We were talking before about how helpful music can be and how a song can have a really effective narrative in a very short amount of time and space.
Yes. Do you have any questions for her, Zack with an H?
Nothing really comes to mind. I'm not very good at the questioning side of things.
But see, we're trying to see because this is your first big speaking engagement doing.
I know.
So
I like listening and chipping in when I can.
Yeah.
Let the man go at his own pace, Caitlyn.
Hey, what?
So,
I just
Elizabeth, I
Give me a
want
panic
to.
attack, why don't you?
This is
I'm kidding, but it's okay.
that's my Lannister tattoo.
That's cool.
Oh God.
Got a quote from Tyrion. No, you don't like
Best
Lannisters?
character.
Yeah.
Listen. You see this? Okay. I have a sister who also, and so the amount of Lannister jokes I have had to tolerate over the past better part of a decade. It's been irritating.
Tyrion Lannister, though, not Jaime or Cersei.
Tyrion's the best.
Tyrion's the best. Yeah.
Tyrion is irrefutably. I mean, they did Jaime so dirty because he had such a redemption arc, and it was so well done. And then in the final season, they were just like, so his entire arc Fuck
Let's
that.
just throw it out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Just throw it away.
The
Daenerys
building
too, while you're at it.
throughout the entire show, all the subtlety, all of the powerful moments where you really saw him as a man breaking down and something better being built back in the place of that shell. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, I hate those assholes for what they did to that show. But Elizabeth, I wanted to turn you on to a bit if you're not already aware of them, because if you draw inspiration from music, you might have a whole character you form from this band. Are you familiar with a band called Hotel Books?
No.
Okay. Write it down, whatever you gotta do to remember it. Hotel Books. This guy, it's kind of like slam poetry, except good. And they set it to music. And it's very powerful. There's some of their songs just flat out make me cry. And so yeah, check them out.
Okay, I wrote it down on my phone.
Yes. So is there anything that you do in particular in crafting your stories? Like, are you a pantser? Are you not a pantser?
For sure a plotter. I have to have an outline before I start writing. And
Atta girl.
Yeah,
Yay.
I have to have an outline. So I actually start off with main plot points, just little like one sentence, like this happens to this character does this, or this event happens. I start off with just doing plot points, and then from those plot points I'll structure out each chapter and put it in the order that I want, like put it in the order that makes sense. My whole goal is to make it make sense. So I actually could pull it up right now, but I don't want to. I literally have the whole outline for book 3, and so I plot out each chapter, like a few paragraphs each for each chapter, and I just kind of work with that when I'm writing. So
That sounds vaguely similar to how I do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't say I don't like slam poetry. I said most of it is good. Some slam poetry is very powerful. Like I said, Hotel Books is basically slam poetry set to music. It's just the quality is so far above almost all the slam poetry you hear at, say, coffee shops in Seattle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or that scene in 21 Jump Street. Or 22
Exactly.
Jump
Street. On just the movie, I have a vague idea of how that went. I can't.
There's a very awkward and uncomfortable scene of Jonah Hill trying to improvise a slam poem in 22 Jump Street.
I'm gonna have to go look. I'm gonna YouTube it. YouTube it after this.
Oh my gosh.
I actually have to get going. It was great meeting all y'all.
Okay.
It was a pleasure, sir.
Yes. And we will have you back on.
Absolutely. Likewise.
Make sure you go sub to my channel, and when I do your review, don't hate me.
Well, hopefully it's not that bad.
No.
But anyway, it's great meeting everybody. And
yes.
All right. 21 Jump Street slam poem.
Slam poem. Yes. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, they have that scene. Fuck yeah, I'm watching that after this.
Okay. It was disconnecting for me for some reason.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So these are, how much time was there in between the time you published your first book and your second?
About 3 years. So it took me, I started writing my first book when I was 13. And I self-published that under a different cover that was horrible when I was 17. Not the cover that you saw, but so at 17 I published, and then from 17 to like I'd say 21 I was working on book 2, and then when I turned 22 I published, shortly after, like a month after I turned 22, I published my second book. So about 3 to 4 years.
Okay. And so,
I'm 22 now, so I published Rise of the Rebels back in January. So it's coming up to a year since I published, and then I turned 23. What day is it? The 10th, 24th.
oh,
So yeah.
2 days before my sister then. And how long do you think it's going to be until the third one is out? Like, how much of it do you have done?
I'm trying to remember what last chapter I was working on. I think it was the 8th chapter, plus the prologue, so 9 chapters. So there's 37 chapters in total in the book 3. And so it's probably going to be like another year, maybe 2 years until I finish writing it. And then it goes to editing, and editing takes like another 6 months to a year for me. So because I hire my editors on Upwork, so that's a great tool. I love Upwork so much. I've met some amazing people on there, and they've done such great work to my books, and I couldn't be happier with that. So I have someone who I set aside for my third book for editing, and I have someone set aside to do my cover too. But it'll probably be like 2 to 2.5 years until my book is published. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you said 2 to 2.5 years before the next one's published?
Yeah.
Is that because of how long it's taking you to write it?
Yes.
Or?
I'm a very slow writer. I only write. I don't write every day. I write maybe once a week. That's my goal, is to write once a week. So I spend one day dedicated to just writing, and I'll do that because I have so much going on. I can't sit down and write every day, but I still try and knock out like at least a chapter a month. That's my goal, at least a chapter a month. So yeah.
So like, are there any other projects that you're juggling at the same time, or do you just do one at a time?
I do one at a time. I do have a lot of other stories in my head, and I do sometimes just write them down. A month or two ago, I actually wrote down ideas for a prequel to my books. So I'm constantly in this world, that I'm writing, and so I'm thinking about doing a prequel, because somebody asked me, why don't you do a prequel? And I'm like, that's actually a good idea, because there's so much more I need to explain in prior to all the events that are happening in my books. So yeah, and my boyfriend, he actually helped me with some of the plot points for my prequel. So that's I'm kind of working on the prequel too, but just here and there, not religiously.
And a lot with that prequel, would you also consider doing supplemental world building with, say, short stories and that kind of stuff on the side?
Maybe. I started writing short stories when I was a teenager. That's how I kind of got into writing, and but I'm like, I can't write short stories. I have to write a book. I have to write lengthy books, so I can't write short stories all the time. But yeah, I mean, I could write short stories if I wanted to. I like writing lengthy books.
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Yes. Do we have anyone in the comments that would like to ask a question?
I don't know. I shared the link everywhere, so hopefully people I know are joining.
Because our numbers seem to be growing, but our chat is not super chatty.
Yes, we do encourage the to be active in late chat. We like to engage with y'all.
Yes. We like to talk to the people who are watching. Katie, do you have any questions for her?
If Katie is even still here.
Still here. Are you amongst the 6 people? Sometimes 7, because the 7 keeps dipping and then coming back. I don't know if that's just because the counter is like, there is 7 here, but there's not. But there is. Jen has a question.
Favorite character you wrote about? I'm biased because tigers are my favorite animals and Kira is a tiger, so Kira is my favorite character to write for. And my second favorite is the other tiger. So I had to write a book about tigers because tigers are my favorite animals. So Skylar and Kira are probably my favorite characters to write for. Kira's just so her mind is so like interesting when I get into it. It's kind of similar to mine, I guess, because she's based off of me. And but Kira is she's stubborn, she's hard-headed, she's emotional, she's like all these characteristics. She's sarcastic, very sarcastic, and but she's probably my favorite to write for.
And Katie asks,
what is the best scene?
Yes, what is the best scene you think you wrote?
I have to think. I'm trying to pick if I want to pick a scene from book 1 or book 2 or both. Book 1, I want to say it's a Ethan scene, where he confronts his father. I think that was a really powerful scene. I think that was probably one of my best writing. From book 1, when Ethan confronts his father about him abusing him and stuff, I think that was a really powerful scene. And in book 2, I want to say it's a Kira scene, the scene where she's mentally breaking down. My editor actually commented on that, said that was my best writing. So my editor thinks this, and I think it was like chapter 12 or something. I'm not sure. But the scene where Kira breaks down is probably the most emotional scene I've written, and it's just it shows how crazy she is, and it's just insane. But yeah, those are my favorite scenes that I've written.
We have a new viewer. William Kinnan asks, why don't you try writing a short story, then turning those short stories into a lengthy book?
That's actually not a bad idea. Like the short stories could maybe all connect in a certain way and they could all be in a book. That's actually not a bad idea. I could probably do that. I'm not sure what kind of short stories I'd write about, but making it all connect could be something that I'll have to plot it out. But that's something I would be interested in trying. Yeah.
To kind of expand your world building.
Yeah, to expand the world building. That's actually a good idea. I like it.
That's the purpose I use short stories for.
Yes, because we want to make our universes as expanded as possible.
Yep. I've thought about writing different series, but they're all in the same universe, like the world I'm creating right now in my Tiger's Blood series. Like I'm thinking about that could be one world, and then there's like another world that I could like create, and they're all a part of the same universe. That's what I'm kind of thinking of doing. So
nice.
Yeah.
So what, if any, plans do you have for the series in the future, aside from a third book?
I do have 2 other books in the works for this series. I'm trying to do five books in the series. So I think I already have names picked out for them too. So my third book is called Return of the Ambush,
Mm-hmm.
and my fourth book, I'm gonna remember it. I think it was Tales of the Bloody Scales.
Mm-hmm.
Not
And
bad.
then
I was really enjoying it.
I'm trying to think of, I don't remember the fifth book. I have it written down somewhere, but I don't remember. But Tales of the Bloody Scales is either the fourth or the fifth book. I don't remember which one. I remember when I was naming them, which ones I wanted in which order. Like I knew Return of the Ambush was going to be the third one, but the fourth and fifth one might actually switch places.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the timeline, so we'll see. Yeah.
Nice. So what, if anything else, would you say that no, better question. What do you like best about self-publishing as opposed to having gone the traditional publishing route?
Control. I like having control of my own books and being able to do more with my books than I guess traditionally published. I know I've never been traditionally published, so I can't really say. But I think if you're traditionally published, like you don't have as much control as over your book covers, your editors, or anything like that. I like that I can pick and choose who I want my editors to be, who I want, what I want my cover to be, and like where I want to post my book. Like I can post it anywhere. The downside of doing self-publishing, I think, is I can't get it in stores for some reason. I would love to have my books in stores.
There is a way to fix that.
There is.
There is a way to fix that.
Okay.
Because
I published through Spark. So
you publish through Ingram Spark?
Yeah.
Do you publish through anyone else like Barnes and Noble? Or do you just do Ingram Spark?
You froze. Sorry, what was that?
Oh. I said, do you use anyone else other than Ingram Spark? Like, do you use Barnes and Noble?
I do use Barnes and Noble and for my physical books, not for my ebooks. My ebooks are through KDP.
Or through KDP? Okay. Yeah. But you also
and I also have audio. My first one has an audiobook too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you said that you use Ingram Spark. There is a way to, and not to sound terribly crass or anything, but how are you doing in sales?
Okay. I sell a few books a month.
Okay. And do they review? Are the people that buy your books pretty good about reviewing?
I have no reviews on my second book because I don't know why, but I have no reviews on that. But I have I think I have 2 or 3 reviews on my third book. Not a lot of people like to review. I've noticed. But I have 2 or 3 reviews on my first book, and then no reviews on my second book.
Well, because what I was going to say was, when it comes to getting your self-published book in stores, oh, Katie is leaving us. How dare you! Since Billy is not here, you suck, Katie. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Oh, man. But what I was going to say was, in a good way to get your book into actual bookstores and in libraries, aside from having people buy the book and going and donating them to the library. If you want to talk to somebody in procurement, one of the best things that you can do is to have not only your own unique ISBN number specifically for all the platforms that you sell to, but having a page of verified purchase reviews.
Okay.
So
you know where? I guess I'd have to figure out where to get. I guess just have people review it who've bought my book, basically, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully more people will review.
Yes.
I know a lot, like a lot of people who've bought my books. They'll come to me and like talk to me about it, but I'm like, can you review it on this platform or this platform? I know on Goodreads I have like 3 or 4 reviews too. But I guess people like to come up to me and be like, "Oh, I read your book and this is what I think about it," but they don't like to do it online for some reason.
Yeah, that is. Oh man, and I'm sitting here waiting for this other person to show up, and it's like, looks like they have not. But so do you have anything that you would like to ask her?
No, not in particular.
Not in particular. All right. Well, it would seem that you have been here for your time slot, and I mean, unless you want to continue to hang out, I was thinking about allowing us to have a short break before coming back and seeing if this other person was going to show up.
I can stay a little longer. I don't have any plans today. We're actually I'm in Wyoming right now, and
oh wow,
we're in a foot and a half of snow.
Oh,
so we're kind of snowed in.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh my god.
Well, Caitlyn, if you are saying that you need to step away and handle short break things, then that is fine. You can leave me here. I can be an obnoxious troll for however long you are gone.
Okay. All right. I shall be right back. If you want to hold down the fort.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I will see if this person is going to show up.
Yes.
Yes.
Go handle your business, whatever you need to do.
Okay.
Oakley dokley.
Okay.
So, Elizabeth.
Yes.
You said you like Game of Thrones. Do you like Game of Thrones or do you like the books?
I like both. I like both the series and the books. I read the books. I actually got in trouble for reading one of the books in school because I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry. This is much more interesting to me than school.
Right. I had a few times in high school where I was actually had my book taken away or just hounded until I put it back in my bag. It's like, well, geez, I'm sorry. Maybe if you were half as interested as this book.
I remember, I think I was in my journalism class. I was like on the school newspaper, and I really didn't do much for this paper besides interview people. And I in the free time I would just read. And my teacher got so annoyed with me because she goes, "What is in that book that's so interesting?" Because I would just keep reading, and I'm like, "There's so much. I can't even talk about all of it." Like, I'm pretty sure I was reading like maybe which one? Feast for Crows. That I think Storm of Swords is my favorite out of the series, next to Dance with Dragons. But I think Feast for Crows was what the Cersei chapters are just so interesting to me. Because just getting in her head is just so interesting. She's such a twisted person. Like, it's so interesting.
See, someone has gifted me the set and they're like tiny little pocket sized ones too. So I'm gonna have to like have a fucking magnifying glass to read them. But I haven't started reading them yet. But I've seen the entire show. and I've also played the board game.
Oh,
The board game is
we
stupid.
have which board game?
I didn't know there was more than one Game of Thrones board game.
There is. So there's the trivia game, which is our favorite. My boyfriend kicks my ass in that all the time. But the trivia game is about the show, not the books. So I know more about the books than the show.
Right.
Because I've rewatched maybe season 1 3 times, but I've seen the whole series like maybe twice in a row, in like a go through. But Tyrion is for sure my favorite. Any Tyrion question I can nail, but Tyrion's my favorite, and then probably Jon and Arya are my second and third.
I'm a big fan of Arya Stark in general. I found her story to be very compelling, and her character to be very compelling. And I feel like I'd like her more. I'd feel like I'd like her even more written, because I'm not the biggest fan of that actor.
Yeah.
But she did do a passable job of portraying that character, as I see it.
Yeah.
I really am excited when I do finally work through the pile of stuff that I have to review for my channel, and then I can actually get to that stuff, because of course I'll review that on my channel too.
What's your channel? I need to look it up.
So right here you see my name on the stream. That's go YouTube/Zack the Dolge. You'll pull my channel up, and my channel name is just my name, Zack Pieper.
Zack the Dolge.
Zack the Dolge. Dolge, yeah. And Dolge is the name of my protagonist in my series that I'm writing right now.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Zack Pieper? Pieper?
Pieper, yep.
How you want Pieper? Okay.
Yep.
All right. I just subscribed.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So.
But yeah. I like narrowing in on what people like about different what people like about the things they like, because you can learn a lot about someone by analyzing the things that they do and don't like.
Yeah, that's true. I think that comment right there, the hello, that's my sister. Your favorite time waster.
Oh, I've got a lot of those.
Yeah.
I have a lot of time wasters. Greetings. Now, you said you started writing pretty early. Have you known that you wanted to write your whole life, or?
Pretty much. So in middle school is when I kind of decided I really wanted to write, like just write books. But I've always loved writing, even in elementary school. I've always loved writing. So, and my teachers, they've always been supportive of my writing too. I would write short stories. I would write, memoirs or whatever, everything. And they really loved my writing. And one of my teachers, I think her name was Miss Lyons, Lyons. She was the one who said I could write a book with all the stories that I've written. So I took her word for it, and I'm like, okay. And I started writing my books. But yeah, it was probably then when Miss Lyons said I could write a book was when I decided I'm going to write a book. So, yep, that's my sister, your favorite time waster. So.
Are you, I was about to say, are you going to unmute, Kate?
Yes. Maybe. Yeah. I will pantomime the rest of this because, oh my gosh, I'm not going to out this person by name on here, but I'm just going to say I hope everything is okay because they're not
communicating?
They have not, they're not communicating. They have not shown up.
Interesting.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you, Jen. I sincerely appreciate it. Yeah, the main thing I'm focusing on right now is reviews, just because I've got so many to plow through.
Yes.
But there is plenty of also, writing craft content on my channel, and there's a little bit of just general bookish stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I've recently gotten solicited by a few people who want me to review their books here on my channel as well, which I was thinking about passing some of them yours and Katie's way as well, just as kind of a way to,
Build stuff at the round table.
Yes, exactly.
That could be a good idea. And speaking of reviews, that's a good one to touch on, Elizabeth. So you don't have that many yet, but what are your thoughts on just reviews in general? And are you excited to get your first really scathing 1-star review? Do you think authors should interact with reviews? What are your thoughts?
So for reviews, I think I'm actually excited to get my first 1-star review. I just kind of want to see if they're gonna be either like trolling, like I don't know, like because there are some trolls that just give 1-star reviews for like no really real reason. I want to see if it's either a troll or if it's actually genuine like concerns or criticisms about my book. Like I want to see, because I thrive on criticism. So like,
as any good creative does.
Yes. So like, okay, so they think this is weird, off, or something. Like I actually put both of my books in for like a Writer's Digest self-published book awards competition. And I got the reviews from a professional judge from that, and they actually really liked my books. They just had some technical issues with it, like I guess in my books I don't have a header, like the author name and the book title. I don't have that, and they had issues with that. But I think that was just my choice. I just didn't want to put it in there, and they had issues with just some small grammar rules and like I forget where, but they said like there was like they were focused on the technical stuff, not really the story. But they loved the story, they loved the plot, they loved the characters. They just had technical issues, which I'm perfectly okay with because I can fix that.
Yeah.
So, but I'm actually really excited. I want to see my first 1-star review just to see what they say. Like, but if it's just like one word, like, oh, this was terrible, that would be like, okay, what was terrible about it? Like,
Right. You literally have to ignore those kinds of negative reviews.
Yeah.
Like, well, if you're not even willing to explain, if you hated it enough to come say it sucked, but not enough to explain why, your opinion has no value.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. It just
like,
doesn't.
There's no. It doesn't count to me. Like that review doesn't count to me. Like, okay, one person says it's terrible, but literally everyone in my life who has read my book, they say only good things about it. Like they say, wow, this must have come from like emotionally, it must have come from a deep like deep state. And I'm like, yeah, I did. They're like, I really like this character, I don't like this character as much. Even like my boyfriend, he's he will say my main character he'll joke that my main character is a hoe, and I'm like, she's not a hoe. No, I'm like, she's not a hoe, she's misunderstood. So he goes,
she's having a phase, you gotta understand what she's going through, man.
Yeah. So like yeah, so I like when people talk about my characters and stuff. So they'll say, well, there was like maybe one instance in book 2 where one of my main characters does something out of character, and that was one of the things that the Writer's Digest judge said something about. That was like the one plot thing that they really was stuck with. It was that one thing that was out of character for that character.
Was that deliberate?
It was kind of deliberate what I did. Yeah, just a little bit. Because I wanted her to kind of change and do something different. And I guess it was too different for that judge. But yeah, it was actually intentional what I wanted to do for that character. So Yeah.
So, what if any way do you feel like maybe you could execute that transition better in the future if you were to do something like that again?
I guess I could explain why they did it better, because that's what I didn't do. Explain why she did it, because she just did it like on a whim, and like I didn't really explain like the reasoning behind it. So I guess I could explain that a little better, go into more detail with that. But yeah, I think that's what I could do next.
And now moving on to more of you as a writer and how it's kind of affecting other things in your life, because I know this happens sometimes and not a whole lot of people talk about it, but like your personal consumption of other content, what if any differences have you noticed since becoming an author has changed the way that you consume other content?
Especially with TV shows, I guess. When I watch TV shows, I can pretty much guess the ending or guess the twist, or even movies too, twist ending. I guess that with a writer's mind, like you can always guess, like, oh, this character's gonna do this or that. It kind of gives me a different perspective. But when I read other books, I tend to like judge them a little more as a writer. Like I'm like, oh, they could have done this and they could have done that, and that kind of takes the joy out of reading for me. So I guess reading is a big one. Like, because when I'm like, oh, like I'm thinking like a writer, not a reader, like whenever I'm reading, and it's kind of weird. So
are you saying you've found that being a reader now, since you've really stepped into being a writer, is less of an enjoyable experience for you?
Kind of. It depends on what book it is. Like if it's a book I'm reading my friend's self-published book right now. It's called The Wandering Order, Autumn Light. And like he warned me too when I bought it. He warned me that there's so many grammar mistakes, and because he hasn't gotten a proper editor. And I'm like, okay.
But he published it anyway?
Yes. He said there's a lot of mistakes in it. So like I was reading, it's been taking me so long to read it because of all the mistakes. Like, yeah. And I'm only like maybe three-quarters of the way through it.
Do you fight with this person?
No.
About how they need to take it down for the good of,
He's working on it. He's working on getting it republished.
Okay, so he did take it down.
The version I got is like his draft. And I'm like, okay.
And he published it anyway.
Yeah. It's a good book. I like the world building is really good. The characters are really good. It's just so many grammar mistakes. And I just like I can admit there's some in my book. There's some grammar mistakes, but
we all have it too.
I go through editors. Like I have one editor. He goes through it like 2 or 3 times. So and he does different, like he does the grammar he does the grammar first, and then he does the plot, and then he does like the grammar and the plot in the second one. So he does both. He does it 3 times. So I guess it depends. I mean, not all authors have the tools like or the money like to pay for professionalism, professional authors, professional covers. But I still try and like be supportive of my friend.
Yeah,
of course. I actually am enjoying his book. It's just taking me so long to read it because yeah.
You're like
me and Cait just we have very strong feelings about editing and releasing good quality work because we take independent publishing very seriously.
Yeah.
We kind of have a personal mission to bring credibility to independent publishing as a place to go for imaginative and original stuff, because traditional publishing has become such a club and so homogenized and so metadata focused. And so we just we have a little bit of a vested interest in people taking this seriously.
Yeah.
So we can't help but take it a little bit personally. I reviewed a book on my channel called El Feast with the Sorceress. And if you want to get a flavor of how mean I can be, go do I want to watch this guy's content? How much of an asshole? Go watch that video. That's about as mean as I'll get. But I just ripped that guy to shreds because his book is a pile of steaming garbage. And it's like, dude, this reads like a kid who English is their second language wrote it.
Yeah.
And it clearly did not receive any level of editing. And he clearly just threw it on the market to say, oh, look, I'm an author. And I do not respect that kind of person. Now, and there's a big difference between, like, say that and like your friend, like where you just said where his issue is that he doesn't have money to pay a proper editor.
Yeah.
And he plans on having it properly edited and then re-uploading it and everything. I can have some understanding and give that person a break. But someone like the dude who wrote El Feast with the Sorceress, who just he has doubled down on his book being good as it is, not only to me but to Caitlyn.
Yes, he was
like your book is an unmitigated disaster.
There's always room for improvement. There's
God,
always room for improvement.
Oh boy!
I don't even consider my books like the best. Like, I think they're great for what they are. Like, as like, because I have it edited, I have the great covers and everything, and I think it's great. There's always room for improvement. Like, I'm sure there's something in book one. A few people mentioned that like there's something that needs to be like added a little bit more, and I'm always up for like once I finish my series, going back and like working through and maybe like re-uploading like a new version of it. Like there's always room for improvement, I think.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And I personally think that both of my books that I have out right now are pretty damn good. But even I will say, yeah, there's probably some things that if I sat down and really focused on just squeezing out that last little bit of quality I'm capable of, there's some things I might be able to improve. But there's a sweet spot of area where, as a creative, not just an author, but any kind of creative, you have to say, okay, this is good enough that I can respect what I've done here, and it meets my personal standards of quality, and I can share it with the world. I might be able to make it better, but there is such a thing as good enough. Yeah. And that has to be good enough for you and good enough for the market. You have to find where those two things meet up, and then that's the bare minimum that you make available to the public. So yeah, I agree there's always room for improvement, but sometimes you do have to just say, okay, I have to stop fucking with it and finish and move to the next thing, or else you can never make a profit doing this.
Yeah.
Well, it's and the other thing too is it's kind of like what Destin was talking about at one point, where he said when you create a piece of fiction, you send it out there. He said it's kind of like sending your child to college. He said, once you have sent them to college and they're out there interacting with the rest of the world, he said you cannot unsend them to college.
Right.
So, do you feel like art, in a way, is never completed? It's just simply abandoned?
I think I kind of have to disagree. I think there is some forms of art that are completed and like satisfactory.
I would agree.
But there are certain, like, I guess with writing, there's always more to tell. Like for that kind of art. There's always more to tell. There's always something more to tell, I think, that's not like completed. So like other forms of art, I guess, there is some things that come to a completion and it's good, it's great. But I think with writing it's kind of like there's always more. There's always more.
And so, what, if any way, do you feel like your fantasy has sort of pushed boundaries in the genre than most of what's out there now?
You know, you already asked that, right, Kate?
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was like,
Oh, well,
you
shit.
guys made the same thing.
Well, no. No, I mean, that's my other question. Okay. The other question. What things would you like to see in the genre that you don't think anyone has done yet?
You know, I feel like I don't know if there's anything that anyone has done that I would like to see. I'm really not that, I guess, picky. I don't know. But like I feel like especially in the movie industry, all the good ideas have been run through the ground and like used constantly and used to like a fault basically. And I think like if there's anything new, I don't know what I would want to see that's new and like unique, like because everyone has their own story, everyone has a story to tell, but I think there's like not that many. I don't know how to answer this really. Like there's not a lot of unique ideas that come to mind that made me think, oh, no one's ever done this before. Like there's nothing that really comes to mind for me.
How about something that you like seeing in the genre that you don't like seeing, that you don't see enough?
Something that I like in the fantasy genre that I haven't seen enough. I feel like I haven't seen enough of like the side characters like getting some closure with things. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes, I do.
yeah, like everyone's focused on the main 1, 2, 3 characters, and then there's the side characters, and I feel like they don't get enough time to shine. I would like to see more of that.
Well, then, to be selfish and plug my own work, my stuff, because let me tell you, that developing. So one of my favorite ways to develop is to develop your side characters. Any good story. Well, I won't say any because every now and then you find a story that's truly good because of the story itself and not necessarily the characters in it. But in my opinion, most good stories, one of the things that makes them good is their characters. And when you develop side characters, the story evolves. And the more developed every individual character is, the more alive as a whole the story becomes. It's like the difference between a single-celled organism and an elephant. A single-celled organism is a story where really the only character that's developed is the protagonist, and everyone else is just kind of there by happenstance. But when a book is an elephant, it's complex. There's many facets to it. It's very clearly evolved and taken on a complex nature of its own. And so I think it's very important to develop side characters.
Yeah, I'm kind of doing that with my books. There's one, I mean, he's kind of coming into like a main character, but he doesn't have that many chapters, is Chase. And let me pull out his card right quick. He's the eagle. So Chase is actually a developing character that's gonna get some sort of closure in my third book with someone who is like missing from his life for a long time, and I think that's gonna be I think that's gonna be really developing to his character, and So I'm kind of working towards building Chase up a little bit more, because right now he's just kind of like helping the other characters right now and be like, what can I get for you? What can I do for you? And I want to focus more on him a little bit more.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And now I have a question here. Do you write, what POV do you write in?
First person.
Ooh, so you're like me then. I too write in
Yeah.
first person. So do you find it to be challenging to develop your side characters writing in first person, or do you still find it to be within very accomplishable levels of difficulty?
It depends on which character. Like one of my main characters is actually one of my hardest to write for, which is Ethan the lion. I can never understand, like, do you ever get that feeling where like you're writing him and you're like, why is he doing this? Why is he going off the rails? Like your character is just kind of like out of your mind and you can't control what he does. That's kind of what he is for me, like Ethan, because like he does and says things that like I'm like, why would he say that? And I can't really understand his character completely. I'm still working on that throughout these books. But like he's just so full of like, I don't know how to describe it. Like he's brash and he's like angry almost all the time, but he's always really close with his friends and he's always loyal. He's like loyal, very loyal. And
He sounds like a Raphael type character.
But like I can never get into his head. Now with the other male characters, Noah and Chase, Noah's kind of easy to work with when I'm writing him, when I'm writing in his perspective. Chase is kind of easy to medium to write with, because like I know what Chase's goals are basically, and I know what he's wanting to do. But with Noah, it's kind of difficult writing in his perspective because he has like conflicting feelings, and I'm trying to understand like what feelings he's trying to go with, you know. But Ethan is for sure the hardest character for me to write, and I'm pretty sure next chapter is his chapter.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
it would seem that due to a cancellation that I had last night with one of my guests because they lost a family member, and this gentleman does not seem to be showing up. Our next guest is not scheduled to show up until 6:30. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off here at the halfway point, and we will be back on air with a part 2 of this stream. So everybody, if you would like, please feel free to come back at 6:30, and we will be talking. Yes, and we will have our next Elizabeth on. Elizabeth Lavender, who will be on to talk about her work. And so
seems to be a lot of Elizabeth authors.
Yes. Yes, it is the season of Elizabeth. Well, yes, it was lovely to have you too, Jen. We hope to see you later. Hey, if you want to pop back on later, like if you take a break or whatever, you can feel free to come back. CST.
Central.
Oh, Central, not Mountain. My apologies.
I'm in Mountain, yeah. That's what I was trying to figure out. I was like, wait, I signed up for 2:30. Was it
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out what time it was.
Yeah, it's like, hey. Yeah. So, all right. Go to the description, do all the things, subscribe to his channel. I don't know where to point. Anyway. And go check out Elizabeth's books. All of the links and stuff you will be able to go to buymecoffee.com/uninterrupted and get feature pages for each of the authors that have been on here and buy their books and all that fun stuff. So
you should also put it down in the description, Kate.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. But I had
that link you just said down in the description.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yeah, because there was a lot, and they only let you put like 5,000 characters
In the description, right?
in the description. So, yeah. All right. So we will be back at 6:30.
All right.
All right.
Thank you for having me.